Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? Wait. All right. Hey, Preto. Good, good.
Hello.
Hello, hello. You guys can't hear loud noises in the background, can you?
No, you're good.
Awesome. Yeah. Construction company just parked outside my house and decided to start banging on things.
The wonders of noise cancellation.
Yeah, I've never really lived in a city before living in Seattle, so I'm still getting used to, street lamps in my face at night if I don't have my blackout curtains down and just noises all the time.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm always afraid that my cat, who walks in and likes to scream and yell at the top of his lungs, is going to make it onto an AMA sometime.
Pets are always allowed, and as Star Wars freak will say, win cats. All right, guys. Thanks for coming here. We're right on time. We'll just dive right in. So thank you guys all for attending the bi-weekly AMA. We're getting really close to launch, and as we get really close to launch, we're really cranking behind the scenes here on all fronts. I think that we talked quite a bit about this last AMA, but we definitely want to give an update on what we're working on, what we plan to have before launch, and then also give some details around the huge news that STRKnet, gave us a 2 million Stark grant. That's massive for us, and I don't want to go too deep into this. I think that Chris would be a better person to explain kind of some of those efforts and what we're so excited about with that. So I'll pass the mic over to Chris and let him give some details on updates and just overall, the grant.
All right. So it was a big week. This grant program actually came together quite quickly. But in the end, the Catalyst program, as they're calling it, is in large part about, I think, retroactively awarding grants to the projects that have been a big part of StarkNet. Fortunately, we were recognized as one of those. I think there's a lot of different things that are being recognized from open source contributions. Some of you may know already, some of you may not. But the fixed point math, basically decimal math libraries that underpin a lot of the dApps that are on StarkNet are from the qubit library, which we created, and also helps run Influence, and ditto for the procedural generation libraries, which underpin Influence, but also underpin games like Eternum, the Realms sort of flagship game, and several of the other games that are built on the Dojo framework. Beyond that, it's recognizing the fact that we've been building on StarkNet since late 2021, went through the sort of Cairo 0 to Cairo 1 transition, and we have, all of us, a large community that is on StarkNet, has been very active in testnet, helping to test the network, and is moving, of course, now into launching on mainnet. So I'm really excited. The goal of the grant is all about growing the community, growing the ecosystem, investing in making Influence and the Adalian universe bigger and grander, and that's what we're going to do. We will have an announcement coming soon. Watch out for that. That's specific about a sway allocation that's going to actually even further accelerate that growth. And we're doing a lot of planning right now around what those programs look like. It's not something that we want to rush, especially with launch coming up. We think it's something that can be really powerful starting around launch and really driving a lot of new obviously supporting the existing development community that is already part of Influence, but driving also new developers to start building around Influence, to use the SDK, to write stories, create content, and just build out Adalia and Influence. So we're really, really excited about that. You will see more and more about that. You'll see more and more, I think, projects in our community being awarded small grants from the STRKnet Foundation, but also you'll start to see grants from Influence. And that's kind of all wrapped up in what is, at this point, very early exploration, starting around a transition to a DAO and a foundation. So you may see that pop up here and there. We're going to be reaching out to people and starting that conversation about how we should really start to form that, how governance will be handled, how we will take what we've done with the Adalian Creative Collective and move that from a kind of season-based, round-based, fairly centralized system to something that is run wholly by the community. So that's outside of the excitement about launch coming. We're now under a month. Things are moving along really, really well. We're at quite a stable place now in the contracts, and we're working away at really nailing the potential player and new player experience, and that's where I would say the vast majority of our efforts are going right now.
Yeah, the grant stuff is super cool. I'll just add that while you were talking about that, I was thinking it is not lost on me that this is sort of the early promise of the decentralized web ecosystem, right? With all this grant money, basically token grants that are there to underpin the fact that if you are out there creating cool stuff, you can get rewarded for it. And all of this is swimming around in the same ecosystem. It's just meant to reward cool creators of cool stuff who contribute to STRKnet, to Influence, to all the stuff Absolutely.
Here. And I think, to me, this is one of the really unique design aspects around Sway is that we do have this this mechanic where new projects can be added and will become beneficiaries of the ongoing emissions. So the goal is for it not to just be Unstoppable Games and a community allocation that goes back into the game to be distributed via event chains, but it's also for new projects that are adding value to the ecosystem as a whole, adding new games, new experiences to be able to be added to that, so that it allows for Influence to grow from just Influence to Adalia as a whole.
Yeah, I also, I think it's fun to have these discussions and give some color around things that most people aren't privy to. But I think it's interesting, Influence has been super focused on a single title, Influence, and getting that game to be launched. But it's always been intended to be, community owned and decentralized progressively into that community through a DAO. And the idea here is, that we first have to prove ourselves that this game exists and that it's fun and we've got players, and then we can rapidly grow. And I think that we're starting to, flip turn the page to that time where we can rapidly grow. I see a question from Hummy too about, can this grant be used to grow the community, not just, fun developer tools? So yeah, the ACC or the Adalian Creators Collective is not limited to just, building tools or mini games. It's also going to be used for, creators and things that we think are, truly going to grow the community. We're not giving a lot of specifics yet because I think it's important to have a system in place before we really, just release all information. But we are going to be leaning into that. I think that if you guys were around for the previous ACC, we kind of lumped everyone into a single group. And I think that ultimately that wasn't super fair to creators versus developers at the time. And so I think like separating them out, having very specific pieces and parts that you can apply to is going to work better. So, I think that we're going to see that here pretty soon. We've got to get launch, out, and then from there we can really expand utilizing that Adalian Creators Collective and some of this grant that we received. Huge shout out to STRKnet. They're really starting to show that they're supporting this ecosystem heavily. But with that, I think we had some things that we wanted to share. Ultimately, we're getting really close to launch. So if you guys have questions about the game, what's happening, whatever it might be, just type them here in the chat and we'll get to them. But before we get to that side of it, where we answer community questions, I think both Proto and Sergey have a little bit of information that they want to share on what things they've been working on. Maybe I'll toss it over to Proto first. He can give some updates on balancing and just game mechanics that he's been working on. Yeah, to follow up here and to add on to this discussion and Proto chime in as much as you want, but a lot of this was had to do with making the starter pack more accessible for players, and realizing what items people really needed to get started in this game and feel like they could have some success. Maybe you want to give some color to that. Yeah, I'll say that I see some comments here, from press there. Sorry, it's like we are focusing heavily on new player experience right now. I mean, I think between what Sergey's been working on, what you've been doing, what we've been kind of pushing in the client, and just the resources that we're building, we realize that this game is complex. It takes a while to learn, and that's totally fine. But we definitely need to make sure that we've dialed in certain things to make it possible for people to, really find out all of the fun things that you can do in this game. And I think that we've really gone pretty far on that from where we, were, even a few months ago. So super excited to see everyone being able to, I think, get into this game. At the end of the day, though, this game, has a strong niche, and I think it's okay that not everyone is gonna love this game. We didn't create a mobile game that anyone and everyone can click a button and go. So it's staying true to our roots while also making those resources and the game loops easier for new entrants. So super exciting about that. I know that we've had so many talks internally about this, so I'm excited to see this all come together from multiple different angles. So yeah, I mean, toss it over to Sergey. Yeah.
Yeah, does this segue nicely into tutorial discussions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, yes, let's just get into that. Happy to share the seat with Chris on this potentially, and this is one of the newest efforts underway, I think, as we approach launch. We're kind of looking at it, and that is, yes, the focus on the new player experience and this kind of interesting, not pivot, I would say, but like kind of re-embracing of the fact that we might need to give players an extra hand, players who are new to this game, who might be coming into this game, maybe expecting something closer to the traditional game loop, which involves tutorializing. And like we've always been like pretty, I would say the background history behind this is we've always been keen on delivering as much of the vision of the game as possible based on our basically team scope and indie size. And we created something that I think was, fairly robust and quite complex for the scope of it. And we had always said, okay, at some point, we're going to release this thing. We've got a core audience of people who kind of know what's up. We've also been like attracting a lot of creators, and we are going to rely heavily upon our wonderful community and the creator kind of content to help people who like come into this game who are fresh to take their first steps. Like, you can go into the Discord and ask around if you're confused. You can go, there's going to be YouTube videos and stuff. But I think it brought us back around to this idea that as launch is approaching, we think there is a chance to supplement and again give people possibly a little bit of a even more hand-holdy traditional kind of like game tutorialized experience for the people who come in and are clicking around in the client, and maybe they don't know what to do next, but there's a helpful person there, similar to the High Council that helps you on the game tour if you have not logged into the game yet, which was the thing that also was, we thought the game tour was simple enough to implement as a thing that like basically helps explain influence, not how to play influence, but why influence is so cool for people who have not logged into the game. It's basically like a live advertisement in the client, because our client is awesome, and you can like do it. You can hop in there and check it out without even logging in. We don't collect an email address. There's no login gate. You can just go in there and people will tell you. The High Council will explain what influence is to you. So beyond that basically leads us to we were kicking around ideas, and I think we can offer. We're going to try to offer a limited tutorial experience. And the limited tutorial experience involves for brand new players when they get into the game and they don't have an account. The first thing they should do is sign up for an account. Once you've signed up for an account, the idea now we have the concept of starter packs for sale, and the idea is the tutorial will begin and it will tell you like, okay, so now it's not just about having a crew, but you need to have crewmate or crewmates in this case. Like we've identified, now we have the starter pack. We've identified the kind of recommended, I would say, new steps that new players should take. And if you have just the starter pack's worth of sway and crewmates to work with, there is going to be a tutorial that will now guide you through how to mint your first crewmates. And your first crewmates should probably start with a miner, and the second one should probably start with an engineer. And the tutorial will help you get both of those minted. After you have your miner and engineer, the tutorial will help you find a plot of land on Adalian Prime, lease that lot of land. You will then be instructed step by step how to set up a site for your first warehouse. You'll be instructed then to lease and set up your first extractor on there. And then once both buildings are built, you can begin extracting. And that is kind of, for now, the very limited stages of where the tutorial will leave you there, because now the game, you have kind of a game loop under your belt, and the rest of the sandbox in theory should be open for you to explore. I'm gonna see Chris, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more to this. I can go into details, but this is still, I would say a very recent concept that we just started talking about. We started kicking around some mechanics. I think we have a pretty good idea of the mechanics that are used to deliver this, but
yeah, I mean, I just think it's, it's clear that it's an important piece of the puzzle. I mean, we have the tour. It gets people interested and excited. Ultimately, influence is complex. It's a sort of game where you need people to kind of get excited enough about the setting, get excited enough about the depth to go and like explore a little bit more. And I think like this piece is another step where it gets you playing a little, and then you're kind of left with okay, what do I do next? But I've done enough now to where I'm stuck in, and I really want to learn more and figure out more about what's going on. Get into the Discord, find a group to play with, etc. So I think we can succeed with doing that, but of course, like, we can expand this system, you know, indefinitely. It can always grow, and we can always try to, I can see, like, in the future this being almost like an advisor. For those of you who have played some of the, like, Paradox grand strategy games, where you always have kind of a list of things that they advise that you could do. You don't always take their advice, but it's kind of like hey, this might be a good next best step. So I think there's a lot of possibilities here, but what we're implementing should serve well to get people familiar enough that they can, like, let the excitement and immersion take over.
Indeed. Yeah, it's gonna be rudimentary at first, but yeah, definitely see it growing. And it's basically like something akin to a quest system. We do want it to be non-linear to help basically facilitate the fact that this is a sandbox game. And we're going to try to design it with ways to, like, you're going to have a warehouse. We want people to end up with a warehouse and an extractor at the end of this tutorial. But if you go ahead and, like, decide you build your extractor first before the warehouse, the tutorial should be smart enough to catch that, and it'll say, okay, now you can, begin extracting, or you can, there's another quest here, which is lease another plot of land and build your warehouse if you haven't done it. So you should be able to take branching pathways through this thing.
Yeah, and maybe just to follow up here, we're still working on one more video tutorial as well. So that's going to be kind of the starter guide, which will walk people through creating an account, buying their starter pack, and then getting into the game, recruiting their crewmates, giving them a little bit of a tour of the UI, because, that can be pretty overwhelming at first, and then diving into kind of those first steps that this in-game tutorial should help with. So, I mean, we're approaching it from multiple angles, and I think that if people say this game is too hard to learn, they haven't either used the resources that we're going to be providing, or maybe the game isn't for them, and that's not really up to us to decide. We're doing everything we can to make that possible for players to really dive in and have some fun.
Yeah, and the videos are great, and we had talked at length about this too. We will have a set of official tutorial videos on YouTube, basically, and acknowledge, like, this is how I think a lot of, like, learning about games works. Learning about modern games is, you can watch a bunch of creator videos before diving in yourself. And this is just like that extra step of gluing them together, because I think we will have this tutorial thing that will catch you in the client and say, hey, you should probably go do this. But also, I think we had also talked about, there might be a URL, a YouTube URL, video link in the corner of that tutorial, and say, hey, if you want to learn more, go here, go watch the official tutorial. And then it will be this nice sort of, like, partnership of quest and external content. And we had even talked about, even decentralizing it, and, like, if there's awesome third-party creators that make content that's, like, superior to ours, like, I don't see why we wouldn't link it there too. In fact, we have a cool menu section, even specifically designed to catch all the cool creator content that and surface it right in the client.
So, Sergey, I know, did you want to show off the tutorials, or sorry, the new, God, my brain, the new HUD with,
the menu. Yeah. I'm glad I got to do this. I am going to screen share. It is my pleasure on behalf of our engineer Patrick, but I've been working with him on this. I showed it, I believe, at the last AMA, the design for this, and now this is a work in progress build. But I wanted to show you guys because this is too fun not to share. This is our new main menu. You guys see it? So this will be the new basically launcher for the game. I showed some of this in a mock-up, but it's pretty cool. So the this is the crew, and you switch your crews here. We have a bunch of these sections. This is I would say in a stage of hardening. It is almost there. Not everything is there, but this is coming soon. We have a help section. This would be the section where all our official tutorial content, there's a link to the Discord is. We're going to publish all the third-party videos here. I'm going to have a reward section. This is for referral rewards. Slightly redesigned settings. You can see all the keyboard shortcuts. Now they're all here. And this is super fun because now you have my crews and you have global account-wide assets. And I'll show you guys how easy it is now with this to switch crews. You still have the crews menu right here. And it's as easy as just clicking in. Go into any crew, and you still have your assets. I think this should be really exciting. I found it super, super powerful to play around with. I can't wait to get this out and get everyone's feedback on it. But this is basically, you got all your leases across every crew. You've got all the buildings that all your crews control and ships. So this is a great way to bounce to different things across an entire account. And the menu works like this now. So it should be very easy to just pop in here. And pop out without the drop down menu. And so yeah, excited. I don't know exactly when this is coming, but we're hardening, so be on the lookout for it fairly soon, I would say.
Yeah, I can see the reception for the crew changes are already quite good.
Yay! Yeah. Happy to tease that. I thought it's going to be, hope it's as awesome when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm excited. It will definitely be out before June 27th.
Yes. Okay, well, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much any of the major updates, unless there's anything you want to mention, Chris, on infra, tech partners, whatever else, but I'll leave that up to you. Happy to take community questions at this time.
To be honest, no, I'm really excited that I don't feel the need to talk a whole lot about tech or infra providers and partners. I mean, I will say that we are still working quite closely with Argent. Our goal is still to have their quote new sessions in place prior to launch. It's still looking like that will be the case, and that's really like the full experience, the full Web 2 traditional experience on Web 3 Rails, where you're logging in with email. We're able to deploy the web wallet account on your behalf, subsidized. We're able to then have the session actually send transactions to be paid for with other tokens for gas fees, including Sway. So I think like we're getting incredibly close to that kind of end-to-end experience. Hopefully it will be there before we launch. If it's not, it will be pretty soon after.
All right, I'm just scrolling through questions here. You guys are chatty today, which is great. I'm just trying to find what questions you guys want us to answer. I know that there's some discussion back and forth about balancing and changes Proto, I see that you've handled it in chat. I don't know if you want to mention anything, but I'll leave it up to you. All right. Scrolling through. I mean, so there's a question about, are the asset menus scriptable? I'm That's out of my depths, but maybe Chris, you can chat about that.
Well, my flippant response was to ask Calerium because he's already doing some pretty amazing things with the extension. But it's always something we're thinking about. It's tricky because trust is always a question there. If you're able to sort of start scripting things, are those libraries made available to others? Do you have trust questions? Can people be tricked? If it's a matter of allowing people to do their own scripting, I think that's pretty cool. But still, inevitably, you'll get people distributing their scripts around others. So it does provide a bit of a security trust question that we're trying to be pretty careful about, considering the fact that these assets are all on chain, and that there's fairly straightforward ways that you could potentially trick people into losing their assets. So we're trying to take a measured approach to that, but of course, we want people to come and contribute as much as possible. We've put a ton of work into the SDK. That work is ongoing. We're already seeing a lot of benefit from that, like Floodgate, for example, that Chavot and Dinker had worked on, makes use of the SDK as well as many of the other community tools. So I think we're going to continue trying to push the envelope as much as possible on encouraging development around Influence, around Adalia with tools like that.
Yeah, I mean, because you called out World of Warcraft in your comment, Professor. I had my screen looked like add-on, plus. I don't even think you saw the game at a certain point. I had so many add-ons, so eventually we'll probably see that Influence as well. So another question here is, is there any hope for more crew customization instead of just random faces and hitting the randomize button? I'll just say that at launch, no. I think in the future we aspire to create a lot more depth when it comes to the character customization, ships, buildings, everything. But we have to realize that we are a small team. It takes a lot of resources to build these things, and with success, we can increase these features that we would love to see in the game. But core features are definitely something that are being prioritized right now.
Oh yeah, long time dream of mine though. More cosmetics.
Yeah, I think what JP is saying is tell your friends and by
Yeah.
asteroids.
get tell your grandma, tell your friends, call your high school, people that you've signed their yearbook in, everyone you know.
It's
Use the
kind of
referral.
weird because I was going to just say, remember those games? There's enough games out there that are like, okay, we have all the cosmetics in the world for you to play with, but not enough gameplay. Those are the games that don't survive very long. On the other hand, we prioritized cosmetics second, but hopefully we have an awesome amount of gameplay and tons of people involved that cosmetics are basically a factor of basically assigning an art team on cranking them out, cranking out a ton of them, and it stretches proportionally with the budget that we can throw at it.
Yeah, I was talking in general today that the Eve Online just came out with their custom ship skin element within the game, and they've been around for 20 years. So it's non-trivial. It's definitely costly, but hopefully we can get there.
And it looks so cool. I'm so glad they finally did it.
It was a joke for so long that I had to make sure it wasn't April 1st when I saw that the other
day. Yeah, right. There was so many. I remember this is even in my Eve days. Yes, there's so many tech demos and attempts at doing it. But that's great. I'm glad finally someone over there took it seriously, and I hope it works out for them. I am curious myself on the how they plan on like gating it basically, and with the monetization for skins. But it looked cool as hell.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think all of us here up on the stage could probably chat for 24 hours on all the cool features that we hope to have one day in Influence. And I think a lot of it also centers around like, how do we do it in like a user-generated way? There's a lot of games are live service games. They're trying to sell you something at any given time. And while that's interesting and it works for some of the larger games, it's very difficult to just constantly sell cosmetics. But I really hope that we see systems in the game that allow users to kind of craft and create and expand from there. And we have this world of tokenization that blockchain allows for. And I think there's some really interesting things that we could do for that in the future. But I think that's more of a conversation for the future. Next question we have is, are market views going to remain asteroid specific, or will there be any in-game tools for extra asteroid markets, maybe even selecting navigation transfers? So I don't know, Chris or Sergey, maybe you guys have some information on that?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, ultimately, are market views going to remain asteroid specific, is the first part.
Yes, they will, because that's the only place you can actually interact with the market. Our expectation, our hope, perhaps our incentivized hope, will be that the community builds sort of system-wide market tools. They will largely be analytics, and I think they'll largely be focused around identifying, opportunities for arbitrage and potentially, focusing on transfer windows and how best to take advantage of the various regional markets. That's not something that we are at the moment planning to be in game, just because the design space for that is like infinitely large, and really comes down to like what your individual business model is for trying to be successful in the influence marketplace. So absolutely something we want to see. Definitely something that this effort that is really just starting on accelerating ecosystem growth would like to see. So yeah, I hope that's something that we'll see fairly soon.
The transfer distances, I was just going to add to that, play such a big role. Like imagine, even if we did, so there are currently 2 tiers of markets. Basically, there's the individual marketplace level and a lot, and then there is asteroid markets, which are across a rock. If you imagine a belt-wide market, and you're there, you're browsing, you find a really good deal, but that deal is like somewhere out in the Trojans. Just think about, how realistic is it that you will go out, by the time your ship arrives, maybe that deal will have vanished already.
Yeah, I think my personal take on the strategy for that is more that you'll be importing goods from those asteroids to larger asteroids. I think it'll be probably a rarity initially to see a ship go out to a Trojan asteroid, for example, to pick up goods. But I am happy to be proved wrong. I'm super excited to see what players end up doing and what strategies evolve. I mean, I think that's one of the huge parts of this game is that the emergence of how people play and the strategies. Like we can't tell you what will or won't happen. We've built the world and the mechanics. Well, I shouldn't say we. I should say the dev team and the game design that has been put in places to allow you to discover these types of these strategies.
I'll add one more quick thing on top of that. But there are some asset classes, right, for which there is a global marketplace, and one which we don't have in the game yet, but another which we will. And the one that we don't have in the game, because it's outside of the game, is basically the crewmate marketplace, where you can, buy a crewmate anywhere. And then if you buy it, then, you become that crewmate. You just instantly can take control of them. But the other one that's like, sort of, I would say like a synthetic marketplace that is in the game right now is the ships marketplace, because you can set a ship for sale anywhere in the belt. It will show up in the ships list view right now. You can view all the ships and then you can sort them by price. And if you want to buy a ship, that's technically a global belt-wide marketplace, because that ship also instantly transfers over to you.
Okay, so next question, and Chris, this one's probably going to need to be answered by you from Thunder. Is can you give some details on how sway emissions work and how much can be created depending on different circumstances?
Yeah, I probably won't do it as much justice as the formula that's in the tokenomics doc would. But the basic idea is that the transactions of sway are tracked or summed over the course of successive periods, and each period is 1,000,000 seconds. Then a moving average is taken over the course of, I think, 30 of those periods. And that forms a sort of target for how much sway is moving. We call it the velocity of money, or the velocity of sway in this case. And the emissions goal, the algorithm that emits sway's goal, is to try to bring sway back to that long-term average. What that means is that it lets, if, for example, the velocity of money is going up quickly and going up in successive periods, it's highly likely to be the case that's because there are more players and the sway is having to move much more quickly to satisfy the needs of those players. Probably also the case that the price of sway is going up. And so in that case, the sway will emit more to try to return the velocity of money back to that long-term moving average. The general idea is that sway will grow, or will try to grow, to keep pace with the growth of the player base. So that the idea being we avoid periods of high volatility, which are often quite unattractive to new players who are interested in getting involved. They might be very attractive to people who are interested in just speculating, but it's often very off-putting, especially to traditional gamers who are interested in getting involved in a Web3 on-chain game. So long-term, that means sway will inflate. There will be more of it. but the goal is that it will be roughly in line with how much the player base is growing. Any upper limit to growth? There's no hard upper limit to growth, but there is a upper limit on the emission rate, which I don't have in front of me right now, but it's. I'm not gonna talk without looking it up. I'll go grab it and report back on that when I have it. What happens if whales cash in their sway during exploitation and the price drops? Cheaper to get involved in influence.
Yeah, it's kind of an open market. I mean, I think that, like Chris is saying, it's volatility day by day can be there, but the system is set up so that over time there's consistency or stability as much as possible. So I think at launch it's not really something that we can put a pin on or and say this is what sway will be, but over time with that averaging out and emissions, that the goal is to create stability in the market. And like Chris said, if a bunch of people dump on day one, then the people who are sticking around and want sway can buy it much cheaper, and then there's stability in a price there.
It should be great for the non-whales, right? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that was really cool. And I was thinking about that the other day too. That fundamentally, actually, whales dumping is a lot less serious of a thing than whales hoarding. Whales dumping could actually be pretty great because it would allow a bunch of non-whales to get in for a great price at the non-whale level.
Okay, so looking at additional questions here. Commander, I know you had a follow-up on kind of just the way that character selection works or for cosmetics. Could we install a slider so you could pick which different face, whatever it might be? Yeah, I mean, look, it's all possible. It's just not something we're prioritizing for launch of exploitation. It would just take a change in how we allow people to customize their characters. All right, let's see here. Chris, I see some other economy questions. I don't know how much more you want to dive into what happens if someone does X or Y with sway at the beginning. But it's all supply and demand. I'll say, prices go up, prices go down, stability can be found, over time.
Yeah, it will find stability. The algorithm, the tokenomics does its best, will do its best to try to keep things stable. But markets are markets. Things will move. But one of the things I think that is different in some ways from the way that a lot of Web3 games have been designed is that we really mean for Sway to be the game's currency and not a share in influence. Really, what we care more about, and sort of the vision that was built around, was that the things that are valuable are the things that you play with. The asteroids, the crewmates, the ships. Those are the things that are valuable. And Sway is just a medium of exchange when it comes to building those things, playing with them, using them for renting space on an asteroid or buying stuff on the market so you can build buildings. What we really care about is active play. And therefore, it's the things you actively play for that we value highest.
I just want to maybe follow up here. The idea here for, or this from Peach Blossom, just a comment on, pretty sure people would pay for cosmetics. Yeah, I mean, look, back to discussion is we have plenty of plans for cosmetics in the future. And the current way that you pick your crewmates, and, their name, you set it, and the cosmetics you randomize. There's plenty of opportunity that could be changed in the future. But what's there is all, included for $5. You buy your crewmate for $5, and you can hit the random button as many times as you want until you find your perfect crewmate. Is that the best implementation? I don't know, but that's the way that it is right now. We're not charging you extra to have, a mohawk versus long hair.
And it's kind of fun too sometimes hitting the random button. I don't know if anybody else does their character creation like that. I usually start that way. I mean, obviously having specific selection would be great. But I might almost prioritize just wanting more in the random generator, right? First thing, just pack it full of more different options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also think it's just like, you're being born into this world. Like, my parents had me. They didn't know I was going to look this ugly. So they didn't get to pick.
Poor things.
Okay, so another question here. Yeah, I mean, there's questions about governance token in general. Like, do we plan to have one? If so, when? I don't know if you want to give any information on that, Chris, at this time.
I can't give any. We don't know yet. I mentioned early on during this AMA that we're just starting the exploration process around how a DAO is formed, how a foundation is formed around Adalia, and a governance token is absolutely going to be something that is part of that process, and ultimately will be governed by the DAO. So I would just say, stay involved, keep an ear out. There will be more coming about that, especially after launch.
I should also say that it's just like play the game. I think everything that we've stated previously is just like, this game is meant to be, controlled by the players. And so that's I think everything that you need to do to really be part of the ecosystem is continue to be part of the community, play the game, have fun, and if/when governance is part of it, then I think you have a good chance of being included in some way, shape, or form. So it is just at time here. I don't see any additional questions, so I'll give it a second to see someone's typing, and then we can close out here in a second. So thank you guys all for being here. Again, launch is on June 27th. Tell your grandma, your parents, your friends, your dogs. Shout on social medias, whatever you want. And then we do have a referral link, just so if people aren't aware, if people purchase asteroids or crewmates through that link directly in game, then you are awarded, some of that. So I think that's it. I don't see any other questions. So I hope you have a great day, everyone. We'll get this recording. I will get this recording up here on YouTube here shortly, and we'll see you guys in the community. Thanks again.
Yep. Thank you guys. Thanks as usual.